Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. We got a ton to cover, folks. We're going to speak about the tropics first. Sara will be with us, Tropical Storm Sara, over the next 24 to 36 hours. Heck, it might happen today. I think soon after that, we'll have a hurricane, and I think soon after that, we will have a major hurricane, Category 3 or higher. The big question is, who is this going to impact? Where is this system going? I think if you live in Florida, you definitely need to be aware of this system. I'll just leave it at that, and we'll talk about why in this video. We're going to go over what's going on with this system right now. We'll talk about the latest from the National Hurricane Center. We'll go over all the model guidance from overnight into this morning. We'll discuss the environment this system will be working with over the next several days that does support rapid intensification. And yes, I do think that this could become higher than a Category 3, maybe even a 4, maybe even a 5. With the environment this system will be working with. And then we'll talk about steering currents. That'll be kind of the portion of the video we'll draw on the screen a lot for you. We'll nerd out with you folks, kind of explain why this could potentially go where it might go, right? After we get done discussing that, there is a whole other topic out there in the weather world, a major pattern change. Complete flip from what we've seen the first 10 or so days of November is going to occur most likely over the central to eastern U.S., and this will bring most likely some of the coldest air of the season that we've seen. And yes, some people will get snow from this. Am I talking about snow in Mississippi or Alabama? Probably not. But listen, this is a big topic on its own. So there's two major topics to really break down. These videos will be very long over the next few days. Have patience with me. If you want to jump ahead to certain portions of the video, I don't take any offense to that. I have timestamps up throughout the entire video. Pay attention to what you want to pay attention to. That's why I put them there. After we get done doing that, of course, we'll discuss what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your day. So a big mouthful is coming up over the next several days. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So let's make sure this is going to work for us. It looks like it is. I already tested it actually before the video, and let's just double check again. And it is. It's good to go. So this is soon to be Sara. And listen, you can really tell the environment in the Caribbean is already healthy. You got a very broad area of convection, and convection is this area in colors you're seeing here, the reds, the blacks, the whites, kind of embedded into the blacks. This tells us, like in the black areas, red areas, we have colder cloud tops, which means that we have healthy convection, taller updrafts. The taller up these storms go, of course, the colder it is in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is indicated by the colors here. And if you look really closely, you can actually see a pretty decent cyclonic spin. You can see some rotation going on like that. This tells us that this is well on its way to becoming a tropical depression, and I think it could become a storm over the next 24 hours, at least the next 2 days. But this thing's already got a very healthy, broad cyclonic spin to it, especially in this area right here. And this will continue to move in this general direction where it will get close to like Honduras, Nicaragua, and places like that, and really have a chance to maybe make a landfall, but really explode in intensification in this area where I just drew the circle. I'm sorry, the arrow right here. So this is what's going on with the system right now. As of right at this moment, I say, this is not a tropical depression. It's not a named storm. It's just an Invest 99L. But this thing is well on its way, and it's starting to put the pieces together to really come together. The latest from the National Hurricane Center, let's have, we're missing the new update. There probably will be a new update literally here in minutes, but as of right now, still a 90% chance of something developing in this red area right here. Pretty much 100% chance that something is going to develop. And in fact, maybe on the next update here in the next few minutes, and I'll try to go back to this at the end of the update on the tropics and see if we can catch a new update. We probably will be able to, but this is the update from about midnight last night. 90% chance something's going to develop in this area in the next 7 days. Develop means develop into a tropical depression or a named storm, and this is definitely going to happen at this point. Okay, so let's see if we can catch one more update. Nope. Anyways, let's keep rolling. Let's just forget about that for now. Listen, let's go over the GFS first. Let's fast forward it 48 hours. Okay, it has this at a 987 millibar low. So in 48 hours, the GFS is saying, hey, this is most likely going to be at minimum a strong tropical storm, maybe Category 1 hurricane. And here it is, just right off the coastline of areas like Honduras, Nicaragua. getting close to Belize. And as you continue to move this in time, it kind of just sets up shop right here in this area off the coastline of Honduras. Okay, and just kind of marinates over the warm waters of the Caribbean. It drops all the way to a 973 Friday night. By the time we're getting into Saturday evening, this is a 944. It's actually scooting back east a little bit. It's getting tugged by this upper trough up here, which we'll discuss when we break down the steering currents. It's a 944 millibar low at this point, Saturday afternoon. And I could see this happening if it does not get too close to land. Okay, this would make it a category 3 or 4, maybe even a 5 storm. And then it kind of begins to pivot back west. You see that little nudge west, and it gets really close to the northern coastline of Honduras. Okay, and then it looks like it's about to slam right into Belize or the Yucatan Peninsula. We get into next Monday morning. A little bit of land interaction might weaken this system. 948, still a powerful category 3-4 hurricane based off the GFS Monday morning. And then it makes landfall as a major hurricane just north of Belize into the Yucatan Peninsula as a strong hurricane. Okay, this has trended west. Watch what happens here, okay? This is when all eyes focus on Florida. So obviously it weakens with land interaction with the Yucatan Peninsula. Let's go on and switch this to a southeast vantage point. Okay, we keep this rolling. Here it comes. Picks up a lot of forward speed. Look at the 540 line. Cold air ushering down out of the north. And this starts to really feel the steering currents from this trough mixed with the ridge, etc. Anyways, this thing is a strong system, so it wants to gain latitude. All right, we get into Wednesday morning. This is still a category 1 or 2 hurricane. It's really starting to get broad, strung out a little bit. But this thing actually gets pushed and shunted south. And it actually goes from moving, at this point, it's trying to move northeast from the southwest to moving west to east and just maintains its strength, if not strengthens, and then goes right into the Florida Keys as a category 1 or 2 hurricane. Okay? And then it goes on and kind of gets shredded apart and affects the Bahamas, though. But you kind of pause it right here. I want you to look at the run prior to this overnight. Let's make sure this is the latest run. It is. So look at the run from OOZ. This is literally the run from last night. Okay? And then the run before that. Okay, so that is a tick south, and that's because probably this trough is trending a little quicker on the GFS. Okay, so pretty wild stuff, guys. I mean, this could wreak havoc in the Caribbean, but also could really impact Florida. The timeline of this would be next Wednesday into Thursday. What about the Euro model? Okay, same thing. This thing is just kind of chilling just north of Honduras. It just sits here, really strengthens, 987 millibar low Saturday morning. We get into Sunday morning. It's a category 1 or 2 hurricane at this point, 979. It gets pulled east a little bit, and then it starts to jog back west after that trough exit kind of leaves the picture in the North Atlantic. 973, this is starting to get probably, well, definitely when it starts to get into the 960s, it's probably getting close to major hurricane status. And after that, 965 millibar low. Okay, here it comes, makes landfall as a major hurricane, almost exactly where the GFS makes landfall. Okay, and 960, I mean, that could be a high-end category 2, category 3 hurricane. The millibar doesn't always tell us the strength, but it kind of gives us a good roundabout guess at it, I guess you would say. Monday afternoon, makes landfall, major hurricane, Belize, Yucatan Peninsula, crosses over, makes that turn a little bit faster than on the GFS. Okay, so we still got a category 1 or 2 hurricane Tuesday afternoon next week, and here it comes. It definitely jogs further north. So Wednesday morning we have a category 2-ish hurricane about to make landfall south of the Tampa area, and it crosses, of course, right over the peninsula of Florida and does hefty impacts, and then it heads on out. So 2 out of 2 models pretty much have a significant impact to not only the Yucatan, but also to Florida. What about the Icon model? Okay, same thing. Friday morning, this thing is sitting here just setting up shop. It gets tugged a little east, but not much. And then it starts to get some westward progression with it. Sunday morning, we have a major hurricane kind of tucked in between Honduras, Belize, and the Yucatan Peninsula here. And it does make landfall a little bit further south, like right into the northern areas of Belize as a category 2 or 3 hurricane. And then obviously weekends with land interaction with the Yucatan. If we kind of back this up and look at the icon model from last night, which goes out further, the icon does get this back over the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, but it doesn't really fully get its act together. It doesn't really kind of come together again. I think the interaction with the Yucatan really shreds it apart. And that's the hope for Florida. And I hate to say it, but it looks like this is likely going to hit somebody. This isn't going to be Rafael. Rafael did hit somebody. It hit Cuba. But I definitely think if this gets into the Gulf of Mexico, which it looks like it is, it's going to hit somebody. It's just, is it going to be shredded apart, or is it going to be a category 1 or 2, maybe even 3 hurricane? Okay. So let's look at the ensemble guidance. This is the EPS. Okay. This is from overnight, the latest that we got. This starts us off around Sunday evening. So you're going to see all these members clustered up down here. So the common theme between now and through the weekend is that this is going to move into this area right here and really just stall out for a couple of days. After we get into early next week, watch what happens. A lot of these members, this doesn't mean we're going to have like 20 to 30 hurricanes, guys. This is the ensemble, makes up 51 members. In this case, it throws all the members on an output force, kind of. So it really shows all the scenarios here depicted by the EPS. So you got, some of these scenarios just plowing right into the Yucatan Peninsula. Some of them, go into Belize. A lot of them kind of scrape the Yucatan. A few of them split the gap between Cuba and the Yucatan. But man, you got a lot of members making landfall. Let's just call it an all-out hurricane into Florida. You got a major hurricane, some of them hitting western Cuba, Yucatan, some splitting the gap, like I said. And then look at all these members just hooking that right turn right into Florida. Okay, that's a lot of members going right into Florida. I mean, look at this one, 941 right into the Florida Keys, into South Florida. So it's definitely concerning. I mean, I'll leave it at that. Now, the GEFS ensemble only goes out 138 hours out. So we're actually going to have to go back to the OOZ because this has not got done running yet. And let's take it about 8 days out. Okay. And look how a lot of those members go right into Florida. So it is definitely concerning, guys. I'll be honest with you. If you're in Florida and not taking this serious, you should. You definitely should. You just got to continue to get updates. That's the important thing. There's a lot of reliable weather people in Florida. So there's really no reason for anybody to not be aware and prepared for this. Now, why does this have a chance to really explode in development? So I'm going to start this off for Thursday morning. This is the upper wind pattern. These are winds 40,000 feet up in the air, 200 millibars. Okay. So, you see these areas in blue, green, yellow, even red and orange here. This is where winds are really going fast in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And then you see the lines, right, with the little arrows embedded into them. That is the direction the winds are going in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So with our actual storm system, which will be Sara, it's spinning cyclonically in the northern hemisphere. Okay, that's how low pressure spins, just like that. Okay, but around the system, you got air being dispersed outward, especially rapidly on this side of the system. Air is being dispersed out like this, like that. It gets kind of weird right into here, but in general, you have what we call divergence aloft. So air is being dispersed out away from the system, so allows for more air to rise. That gets dispersed outward. And you mix that with the fact, and I explained this in last night's video, there's hardly no flow as it is. So there's basically flows being pushed out, and there's just hardly no flow. So there's no wind shear. So this system is just basically able to, I know I've used this term a lot, but basically just marinate and just chill down here in the open, warm bathtub waters of the Caribbean with no wind shear, nothing to really affect this. And it's just able to really build this very impressive moist environment. Therefore, it's able to rapidly intensify. Okay, so this environment continues, and this thing gets so strong it creates its own cyclonic environment right here, because there's no strong wind currents, because this upper trough up here is just too far away. The ridge over here is just too far away. The trough is way still over the lower 48. There's nothing affecting the system. Eventually it gets hit by a wind shear, of course, with this huge mega trough digging down to the eastern U.S., which we'll discuss here in a second. But, obviously, that's going to happen in November. You mix that with the fact that, the sea surface temperature is 29, 30 degrees Celsius. If you, convert that to Fahrenheit, that's the mid 80s in Fahrenheit, pretty much. I mean, it's just the 80s. So the waters are still cooking down here. And they're still pretty warm in the southern Gulf of Mexico, too. Especially in this area. You see this area right here, where this system will most likely try to pass through, whether it's over here, whether it's here, or whether it's right down the middle. The waters are still warm in that area. Okay, so, steering current wise, I'll try to explain this a little bit faster than I did in last night's video. I got kind of jammed up in last night's video, but this is verifying for around Friday morning. Here is Sara right here, the blue blob. That's low pressure. Low pressure up here is in the blue. High pressure, a ridge, is in the orange or warmer colors right here. So, flow around, let's make sure we get this right. Flow around this is going just like that, right? Okay, so flow around this trough is going just like this. Flow around this ridge is going just like that. Let's make sure we explain this correctly. Yeah, we should have. Yeah. Yep, we're good. So, as we're moving forward here in time, it can get very confusing. It really can. Sometimes I got very confused in last night's video internally. If I didn't show it, I did. So keep that in mind, right? So we kind of got two flows actually helping to kind of just keep this down here. Now, what I want you to watch is this area up here and how close it gets to Sara. Make sure I don't say Raphael, okay? So let's keep this going. So you look at that and you say, hey, well, nothing's really pulling this one way or the other. Even if it was close enough, it would actually be pushing down on it. So we keep this going, and this little upper kind of extension of this trough, this little cutoff low, digs down here. By the way, this will bring a lot of unsettled weather to the Carolinas tomorrow in the southeast. And it actually helps to extend this trough a little bit further southwest. And you see how the blue connects here? The tropical system, Sara, actually feels the influence of this pull from this trough. And if you watch how the system kind of yanks eastward a little bit. See how it kind of moves east a little bit? It's because it feels the pull of this trough. It kind of feels the influence of that. So it actually yanks it a little bit this way. But watch what happens with this area right here as we continue to move this in time. It kind of escapes, gets out into the North Atlantic, and then a ridge, a very quick moving ridge, kind of moves in place, okay? And as it does, the system kind of feels the influence of this, the steering currents of this. So you got the pull going around, the flow going around the bottom edge of this ridge just like that, right? So this is going to kind of try to yank it back this way a little bit. And that's why this thing kind of hits it in reverse and starts to go back west like it is right here. And this ridge kind of builds on the northeast portion of the storm. So at this point, the flow's kind of going like this. Okay. So this system is starting to go over the Yucatan, and whether it's going to go like that or like that, it's basically following the flow of this. You mix that with the fact that this is a strong hurricane. Stronger hurricanes are going to want to gain latitude, eventually going to want to go north. Strong low pressures like to eject north. Okay? So get this back off. Now watch, the system's going to continue to go north. And you're thinking, well, how is it plowing right into this ridge like this if the flow's kind of going like that? Well, that's because you got a strong low pressure. It's going to want to work against what's relatively weak ridging in place. And then we keep this going. And then at this point, this thing basically it's weird. What happens after this? Flow is going around this trough just like that. So it's trying to push this system kind of like this. But things get weird in this time frame. Does this system kind of go more so like this? It just depends on how deep this trough is digging. It really does. Does this thing kind of just do its own thing, get pulled into South Florida? Does this trough sort of yank on this and yank it over Florida and maybe merge together? There's been some chatter about that. It's a big question here. So pretty wild stuff, guys. Hopefully you pulled some information out of that. I like to nerd out with you guys a little bit. But that's an update on the tropics. The next thing we'll discuss, we'll kind of go back to a similar screen, okay, is the pattern change. Listen, this is significant on its own. Okay, and we're going to start this off for Monday, and we're going to look, yeah, this is the GFS. We're going to look at the GFS. You see this upper low down here in the southwest, the Four Corners region. That fully ejects across the country. This could bring severe weather. This is getting into Monday into Tuesday. The ejection of this trough could bring a little severe weather. Okay, we got the ridge. It's beginning to move on out. Then, of course, you see Sara down here on your screen. Watch how this trough amplifies, just full-fledged drops right into the eastern U.S. This, in response, this huge ridge spikes across the western U.S. This trough dumps across the eastern U.S. And folks, you're going to have energy pinwheeling around this trough, okay? Inside of this trough of low pressure. When I say trough, just think of low pressure, okay? And this is going to bring cold air, definitely a cold air. How fleeting is it? How quick is it? I'm not sure. But listen, I think that something like this would bring a pretty stout amount of cold air. I mean, a lot of people will experience their first frost and freeze, no doubt. This will probably bring a northwest flow snow event. If some weird reason you can have, you see this little indention down here? That is Sara. If you combine this and this gets tossed into this trough, we get insanity. But this big blue blob that you're seeing over the eastern U.S. late next work week can just bring some wild weather. And I'm going to show you what it looks like on the surface here in a second. Not just going to show you this confusion depiction of the pattern, okay? Same thing with the Euro. Okay, big trough sets up and it goes 10 days out. It actually extends further out on Weather Bell, which I'll show you here in a second. But you can already see in an extension. You see this little bulge of energy right here? Kind of this, no, that is definitely not the color we want to use. You see this little darker area in blue right here? This is about to pinwheel down, really enforce the cold. That's a piece of energy, and it's about to do some wild stuff. But in general, I want you to focus on the fact that we got a big trough over the eastern U.S., ridge spiking. So this is a huge pattern change, folks. This is going to bring some wild weather to the eastern U.S. So what does this look like at the surface? We'll start in the central U.S. Okay, remember I talked about that energy ejecting across the country? Well, here it is on the GFS. Okay, it's a pretty warm system. This could bring severe weather Monday evening, maybe into Tuesday. If we can get some moisture that connects with the cold side of this, we could get a snowstorm across the high plains. And in fact, it does evolve into that, into the upper Midwest in northern Minnesota, and then eventually into northern Wisconsin, to the UP and Michigan, where it really gets going, and this can turn into a multi-day event of snow for the Great Lakes region as a trough amplifies, drops down, and really brings in more cold air over the warm waters of the Great Lakes. Okay, and we keep this going, and things get wild in the eastern U.S. after that. Okay, so the big story is this first initial storm, I would say, across the middle of the country. And what does the GFS look like for the eastern U.S.? Well, here comes the initial push of cold air, right? Look at the snow falling in the southern apps of North Carolina and Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia. Okay, and then we get into Thursday, which, by the way, guys, I go to the mountains next Friday, and I am watching this like crazy because I thought that it was just a pipe dream that we could get snow in late November in the mountains, which it can happen. But there is a crazy pattern setting up, and I'm not going to lie. I'm very excited for next weekend to have the possibility of seeing snow. It's just timing it right at this point. But next Thursday morning, look at the northwest flow energy coming down out of the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley and the Midwest, and it is snowing all the way down into the northern Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee. And I think this is very possible with such a deep trough in place. The deeper this trough digs, I would say the more Sara trends south. And then the more, I would say, crazy the weather can get further south as far as winter weather. Am I talking about a snowstorm for the deep south? No, but I'm talking about northwest flow. An aggressive northwest flow event could really set up. And I mean, look in West Virginia. It's snowing like crazy Thursday night, and we keep this going all the way into Friday morning. Look at all this lake effect snow action ongoing late next week. Is this a forecast? Absolutely not. But does the pattern support it? Absolutely. Now, what about the Euro? Same thing. Go back to the central U.S. Shows a big storm system that's probably going to bring severe weather across the south central U.S. Monday, I would bet. Okay, this moves over. Now the Euro does show a big winter storm across the high plains early to midway next week. Okay, this is like Tuesday into Wednesday morning. And then, we get into next Thursday. Look at the rain switching to snow in areas of the Midwest. And then we just get this amplified, kind of reinforcing shot of cold air and energy that comes down out of Canada. And we start to get into like next Saturday, and we just get all kinds of wackiness. Okay, what about the Eastern U.S.? Okay, we're way too close. All right. Start off for this weekend. We start to get into next week, Monday. We get into Tuesday. And, we're going to actually have to switch it back to this. Here it comes. Here comes Sara down here making landfall into Florida. And then here comes the cold air behind it. Now, the Euro is a little bit different. It evolves this a little different. The first shot of cold air, not as potent. Now, the second shot, I'm kind of pulling for this as a snow fan in the mountains. The second shot brings a lot of energy with it as we're getting into Saturday. And look at the snow flying around across the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, the higher elevations. And we just kind of get waves of energy that moves over the mountains. And it could definitely kickstart the lake effect snow. Just a very potent shot of cold air, too. Okay, speaking of the cold air, this is the Euro ensemble. Okay, this is temperatures compared to average. Look at the below average temperatures creeping into the south central U.S. mid to late next work week. And then as we get into next work week, late work week, colder than average temperatures begin to dominate the central to southern U.S. And then this sticks around all the way through next weekend. Look at the below average temperature showing up. And I mean, it sticks around all the way to almost Thanksgiving, folks. This is a substantial pattern change. And I mean, if you look at the GEFS ensemble, okay, this brings the colder air in much faster. For example, as we're into like Thursday morning of next week, well below average temperatures already have moved into Florida, the southeast. And, I mean, it really depicts well below average. I mean, I'm talking about if you live in the green, that's 10 to 15 degrees below average. And it sticks around through the weekend, next weekend, and beyond. So I'm going to keep showing you this. It's the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. This updates at about 4 o'clock Eastern time every single day. This is from yesterday, obviously, because it's not 4 o'clock today. Look at it. It's moved the below average temperatures ever so slightly, and not slightly, a good bit, to the south and to the east. And I expect these areas, especially in the southeast, to start to show up in blue today through the 21st to the 27th time frame. So listen, this pattern change that I've been talking about over the last few days, it's not something that I'm just talking about. The National Weather Service sees it too. So, with all that being said, let's skim through today's forecast. So a lot of weather moving into the Pacific Northwest, a lot of rain falling, higher elevation snow, way up there. We got this system in the middle of the country. This is a cutoff low. This little system right here is actually going to continue to kind of dive down this way and just bring a very soggy day of weather across this area of the country tomorrow. I mean, I'm talking about a cold November rain. If you're a Guns N' Roses fan, you know that song. It's going to be a cold November rain tomorrow. And across areas in the middle of the country, it'll be today. So a lot of weather across the middle of the country. We got some rain across the Mississippi Valley. And that's what's going on right now. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Red flag warnings continue for southern New England. We really need the rain. It is a cold morning across areas of the mid-Atlantic. We got winter storm watches up in the Sierra Nevada, advisories in the northern Sierra Nevada, winter weather advisories in areas of the Rockies of like Colorado and Wyoming. Winter storm warnings up for areas of the Cascades. We got a lot of wind alerts across the Pacific Northwest with this system moving into. The excessive rainfall outlook, a marginal risk for the Pacific Northwest, but we do have a slight risk down here. So we'll zoom into this. Jackson, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Laurel, Natchez, Alexandria, Greenwood. You guys have a slight risk of excessive rainfall. Vicksburg, zoom in a little bit more. Macomb. That means you have a 15% risk of rain exceeding excessive amounts in this area. And then the risk of severe weather, we do have a marginal risk for Jackson, Meridian, down to Hattiesburg, Gulfport, Mobile, New Orleans, Baton Rouge. There is a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. I think we could get some nasty storms down here today. So speaking of that area, if we look at the southeast as a whole, You're going to see a big time moisture pool up the Mississippi Valley and River area. So it's going to be raining pretty hard this afternoon. Evansville, for example, all the communities in western Kentucky, southern Illinois. Look at these storms bubbling up down here in Mississippi. A very stormy day in the state of Mississippi. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a spin up with this kind of look here. But a lot of storms in Mississippi. As we're getting into the overnight hours, a washout moves into the mountains of the southern Alps here. Northern Georgia, rain starts to fall. You start to get rain in Atlanta, storms back in Alabama. And by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of ice, a little bit of freezing rain in some of the very high elevations of the North Carolina, West Virginia mountains. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised they put some winter weather advisories up for this. But waking up tomorrow morning to just a lot of rain moving into the Western Carolinas and Georgia. Closer look at the severe weather today in Mississippi. Just, this is for about 4 to 5 o'clock this afternoon. Look at these storms just outside of Memphis. And look at these storms down here in the southern half of Mississippi. These could pack some gusty winds, some small hail, maybe a quick spin up. The storms actually off the coastline look, like they could have some spin to them, but definitely just be aware of these storms here today. And then the heavy rain overnight into Alabama and Tennessee. Rainfall between now and just the next 24 hours could get up to 2 inches of rain in central Mississippi, Jackson, about an inch. But just taking a closer look at this, hopefully you can see your area. But the entire state of Mississippi, a lot of rain today. Western Tennessee, good for a half an inch to an inch and a half. And then Evansville, could get an inch and a half to 2 inches of rain. Owensboro, same thing. So definitely a lot of rain in the southern Indiana also. The Northeast today, pretty quiet. We need the rain in southern New England. You're not going to get it today. Maybe this system moving in tomorrow morning could bring a little bit of rain. But waking up tomorrow morning to some rain across the state of Ohio. Much needed rain across West Virginia, Western Virginia. But today for the Northeast, a pretty quiet day of weather. The South Central U.S., this system's moving in through the north. Some rain will start to enter the picture in Missouri and Arkansas. But the immediate South Central U.S., a pretty quiet day of weather. We've kind of already broken down Louisiana and especially Mississippi. But as far as the South Central U.S., it's pretty quiet. North Central U.S., rain, no snow. We'll continue to move across the mid to upper Midwest. So this afternoon, just rain showers across Minnesota, Iowa. Big push of rain gets all the way up to Chicago from the south, all the way into Chicago. Indianapolis will start to get some rain today, this evening. And then the rain will get probably all the way up into the UP of Michigan by the time we're getting into after midnight tonight. And there's not really any cold air associated with this. This is just all rain. But definitely just waking up to a soggy morning across the Great Lakes area tomorrow. But out west, just a lot of moisture into the Pacific Northwest. Heavy snow will begin to fall in the higher elevations of Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. And just one system after the other out here for sure. So be aware of all of this action out here. Temperatures is what we're looking like. A little bit of cold air funneling down to the Carolinas, a cool November day. Some warm air in this area right here, surging up all the way into Kentucky. It's wild. On the western side of the mountains of the southern Alps, you'll get into the 70s and 60s. On the eastern side, you got cold air damming only in the 50s. So deep south, 70s and 80s, still warm. The Northeast, a chilly winter-like day. And out west, this is what it looks like. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. And I'll talk to you again soon.